Why would Omar Bradley fire America's most feared night fighter just days after Time magazine put him on the cover?
Your objective is this
August
ridge,
7,
Major. Take it by
1943.
0600.
Major General
My men
Terry
are
de la
exhausted.
Mesa Allen
We need
stood in the
water and
dusty
rest before we can
headquarters of
push.
II Corps, somewhere in the scorching hills of Sicily. Lieutenant General Omar Bradley waited for him, his expression revealing nothing. Outside, Allen's 1st Infantry Division, the legendary Big Red One, was still recovering from the brutal six-day battle for Troina, one of the bloodiest engagements of the Sicilian campaign. They had won.
We will destroy them.
They had broken the back of the German 15th Panzer Grenadier Division. And now, without warning or ceremony, their commander was being relieved. This is just one chapter of a much larger war. Subscribe to World War II Frontlines so you don't miss the next one. The conversation was brief. Allen was out. So was his assistant division commander, Brigadier General Theodore Roosevelt, Jr., son of the former president. The official reason, a need for fresh leadership after the difficult assault on Troina. But the truth was far more complicated, far more personal, and would take another year and another division to unravel. This is the story of how a general who couldn't follow the rules became the only man who could win the impossible fights. Terry de la Mesa Allen was born on April 1, 1888, in Fort Douglas, Utah. From the beginning, he was trouble. He failed out of West Point twice before finally graduating, already marked as an individualist in an institution that valued conformity. But what the Army saw as a weakness would become his greatest strength. By May 1942, when Allen took command of the 1st Infantry Division at Camp Blanding, Florida, the unit was good but not great. He transformed it. Allen didn't just train soldiers, he built fighters. He taught them to think like him, aggressive, audacious, willing to attack when conventional wisdom said to defend. Find 'em, fix 'em, fight 'em, became his mantra, take the high ground. Inflict maximum damage with minimum casualties, and above all, attack at night. The 1st Infantry Division landed at Oran in November 1942 and immediately plunged into some of the fiercest fighting of the North African campaign. At Kasserine Pass in February 1943, where American forces suffered their most humiliating defeat of the war, Allen's 16th Infantry Regiment helped stop the German advance and saved the American position. At El Gueter in March 1943, Allen's division spotted the approaching 10th Panzer Division before dawn and crushed the German counterattack. At Gafsa, Allen was ordered to hold the town as a supply base. His response, "But the orders don't say anything about what steps to take to hold it." So he attacked. By the time the North African campaign ended in May 1943, the 1st Infantry Division had fought for 21 brutal days at El Gueter, spearheaded the final push toward Tunis, and earned a reputation as one of the finest assault divisions in the Allied arsenal. General Dwight D. Eisenhower, the supreme Allied commander, wrote to Army Chief of Staff George Marshall on March 3, 1943. "Terry Allen seems to be doing a satisfactory job, so is Roosevelt." But Omar Bradley saw something else. He saw a division that was too independent, too undisciplined, too much a reflection of its commander's defiant personality, and he was waiting for his chance. Operation Husky, the Allied invasion of Sicily, began on July 10, 1943. The 1st Infantry Division landed at Gela on the southern coast, tasked with securing the beachhead while British forces pushed up the eastern side of the island. Within hours, the division found itself in a precarious position. German and Italian forces counterattacked with overwhelming force. The Hermann Göring Panzer Division, one of Germany's elite armored units, attacked with 90 tanks, trying to push the Americans back into the Mediterranean. The men of the 1st Infantry Division were heavily outnumbered, under intense assault, facing the very real threat of being driven into the sea. At this pivotal moment, as enemy tanks advanced toward the beaches, Terry Allen gave an order that defied all conventional military logic. "We attack tonight," he commanded. It was pure Allen, audacious, aggressive, and exactly what the situation required. The 1st Infantry Division stopped the German counterattack cold. The beachhead held. The invasion of Sicily was saved. Bradley would later make an extraordinary admission. He questioned whether any other American division could have held that position. Yet even as he praised Allen's tactical success, Bradley's doubts about the general and his division deepened. The tension between the two men had been building for months. Bradley was the quintessential organization man, methodical, controlled, a leader who preferred to command by suggestion and example. Allen was his opposite in every way, impulsive, profane, willing to bend or break any rule if it meant protecting his men or destroying the enemy. Bradley valued discipline and adherence to higher command. Allen valued results, and he had no patience for orders he considered stupid or dangerous. The 1st Infantry Division reflected their commander's personality. They were cocky, confident to the point of arrogance, fiercely loyal to Allen and Roosevelt. When soldiers from the division got into fights with British troops in North Africa, Eisenhower called Bradley on the carpet and gave him a royal chewing out. Bradley transferred the blame to Allen for his utter disregard for discipline, everywhere evident in his cocky division. But the real issue wasn't discipline. It was philosophy. Bradley wrote that he was not certain that Allen had the inner toughness to impose discipline and training or the willingness to take orders from and play on the same team with higher command. In other words, Allen wouldn't fall in line. He wouldn't be controlled. And for Bradley, that was unforgivable. After securing the beachhead at Gela, the 1st Infantry Division pushed inland. They fought at Ponte Olivo and Barrafranca. By late July 1943, they were approaching Troina, a heavily fortified town in the rugged interior of Sicily. The Germans had chosen their defensive position with care. Troina sat on commanding terrain, surrounded by hills that provided perfect fields of fire for artillery and machine guns. The 1st Infantry Division began its assault on Troina in late July 1943. What followed was a nightmare. The battle for Troina became one of the bloodiest engagements American forces would face in Sicily. The German 15th Panzer Grenadier Division and elements of other units defended the town with fanatical determination. Every hill, every ridge, every stone building became a fortress. The 39th Infantry Regiment struggled through the hilly terrain, with one battalion losing its bearings and wandering ineffectually for an entire day, ending up near their starting point at Rocca di Mania. A 2nd Battalion reached Monte Basilio with relatively little difficulty, only to be pounded mercilessly by German artillery fire directed from neighboring hills. The defending 115th Panzer Grenadier Regiment launched counterattack after counterattack, each one repelled by machine gun fire and American artillery bombardments, each one adding to the growing casualty lists. For 6 days and nights the battle raged. The summer heat was oppressive, temperatures soaring above 100 degrees. Water was scarce. The rocky terrain made digging foxholes nearly impossible. German artillery shells rained down continuously, the explosions echoing off the surrounding mountains like thunder. By August 5th, the situation had become desperate. Food and ammunition were running low. Casualties had greatly depleted the regiment, with one company mustering only 17 men effective for duty out of a normal complement of nearly 200. The soldiers were exhausted. Many had been fighting continuously for weeks. Some had been in combat since the landings in North Africa 9 months earlier. And still the Germans held Troina. It was at this point, with the men at their breaking point, that the German infantry attacked again, touching off another round of furious fighting. American forces clung to their exposed positions on Monte Basilio. The 39th Regiment launched another battalion attack near the Pont di Falia Bridge, supporting the efforts of the 26th Regiment to expand their tenuous foothold. Slowly, agonizingly, ground was gained, then lost, then retaken. Each yard cost blood, each hilltop became a graveyard. Terry Allen was everywhere during the battle, moving from unit to unit, encouraging his men, adjusting tactics, refusing to accept defeat. "Hell, we haven't begun to fight," he told his officers. "Our artillery hasn't been overrun yet." It was classic Allen, defiant, determined, inspiring his men through sheer force of will. Finally, on the night of August 5th-6th, the German commander for Sicily, General Hans Valentin Hube, made his decision. The 15th Panzer Grenadier Division was badly damaged, its defensive position threatened. Hube ordered a withdrawal toward Randazzo, then Cesaro. When American patrols entered Troina on August 6th, they found the town deserted except for the dead and the rubble. The Germans had escaped during the night, their defensive line broken but their army still intact. The 1st Infantry Division had won, but the cost had been staggering. The division was spent, its regiments shattered, its men hollow-eyed and traumatized. As the 9th Infantry Division took up the pursuit, the Big Red One retired from the front line for rest and replacements. Their fight in Sicily was over, so it turned out was Terry Allen's command. August 7, 1943, the day after Troina fell, Terry Allen received orders to report to II Corps headquarters. Omar Bradley had been waiting for this moment. General George Patton, the 7th Army commander and Allen's protector, was occupied responding to official inquiries about the slapping incidents. Patton had physically struck 2 enlisted soldiers suffering from combat fatigue, a scandal that would eventually cost him his command. With Patton distracted and unable to intervene, Bradley seized his opportunity. Bradley ostensibly justified his request to General Eisenhower by stating that a change of senior command was needed in the 1st Division after the failure of the initial assault on Troina. But this explanation was transparently false. The 1st Infantry Division had just won the Battle of Troina. They had broken the German defensive line. By any objective measure, the operation had been a success. The real reasons for Bradley's decision were inconsistent and confusing, as one military analyst later observed. In various accounts over the years, Bradley claimed Allen was tired, Eisenhower's version, that his troops were undisciplined, one of Bradley's versions, or that Allen was too aggressive against the Germans, another, less credible Bradley version. The truth was simpler and more personal. Bradley and Allen were fundamentally incompatible. Bradley believed in order, discipline, and adherence to the chain of command. Allen believed in audacity, initiative, and protecting his men above all else. Bradley wanted commanders who would execute his plans without question. Allen wanted the freedom to fight his own war his own way. On August 9, 1943, just 2 days after Bradley fired him, Time magazine hit newsstands with Major General Terry Allen on the cover, praising him as one of America's great division commanders in the making. The article detailed his victories in North Africa and Sicily, his tactical brilliance, his courage under fire. It was a spectacular piece of timing and a humiliating counterpoint to his dismissal. Allen returned to the United States, seemingly in terminal disgrace. At age 55, his combat career appeared to be over. The Army had plenty of younger generals, plenty of men who could follow orders and play well with higher command. But someone still believed in Terry Allen. On October 15, 1943, just over 2 months after Bradley had fired him and declared him not fit to command, Allen took over leadership of the 104th Infantry Division at its training camp in Bend, Oregon. The assignment came directly from General George Marshall, the Army Chief of Staff. The fact that Marshall gave Allen command of a 2nd Combat Division under Eisenhower attests to Marshall's high regard for him. Allen arrived at the 104th with something to prove. He had learned from Bradley's criticism, even if he disagreed with it. This time, he would give his critics no ammunition. Strict discipline was one of the first things on his agenda, belying Bradley's complaint that Allen was a very poor disciplinarian. But Allen didn't abandon what had made him successful. He still believed in aggressive tactics. He still believed in protecting his men through superior training and audacious action. And he had one more lesson from his combat experience in Tunisia and Sicily. Proficiency in night fighting kept casualties low. Allen set about transforming the 104th Timberwolves into the most feared night fighting unit in the European theater. He emphasized night fighting tactics in training, dedicating 30-35 hours per week to it, 3 to 4 times what the Army required. "Find 'em, fix 'em, fight 'em," he told his men. "Take the high ground, inflict maximum damage to the enemy with minimum casualties to ourselves. Night attack, night attack, night attack." The division's motto became simple and terrifying. Nothing in hell can stop the Timberwolves. The 104th Infantry Division landed in France on September 7, 1944. By October, they were in combat in Belgium and Holland, liberating towns and villages with a ferocity that shocked the German defenders. Approximately 170 Americans from the division lost their lives liberating West Brabant alone, but they never stopped moving forward. In November 1944, the 104th was assigned to the assault on Aachen and the heavily fortified industrial towns surrounding it, Stahlberg, Eschweiler, the Donnerberg. This was the Siegfried Line, Germany's western defensive barrier, defended by veteran troops fighting for their homeland. On November 16, 1944, the division launched its main effort with the 414th Infantry Regiment driving toward the Donnerberg and Eschweiler woods. German opposition from the commanding ground of the Donnerberg was fierce, but elements of the division secured a hold on Birkengang, a suburb of Stahlberg. Eschweiler fell on November 21 after brutal house-to-house fighting. The 104th fought at night whenever possible, using the darkness to close with German positions, to bypass strongpoints, to attack where the enemy least expected. Allen's emphasis on night fighting training paid dividends in blood saved and objectives taken. A higher commander, watching the division's relentless advance, smilingly told Allen, "You'll be pinched out, Terry, when we reach Berlin." It was the ultimate vindication. The troublemaker who couldn't follow orders had built not one but 2 of the finest assault divisions in the U.S. Army. Terry Allen retired in 1946 with the rank of Major General. His decorations included the Distinguished Service Cross, the Silver Star, the Distinguished Service Medal with Oak Leaf Cluster, the Legion of Merit, the Bronze Star, and the Purple Heart with Oak Leaf Cluster. He was also awarded high honors by the British and French governments. Omar Bradley never admitted he was wrong about Terry Allen, but George Marshall's judgment had been vindicated. The general who appeared on Time magazine's cover 2 days after being fired had just led his 2nd Division to victory. The troublemaker who failed out of West Point twice had built the most feared night fighting unit in the European theater. Bradley had said Allen was too much of an individualist for coalition warfare. Allen had proven that individualism wins wars. The firing of Terry Allen after Troina was supposed to be the end of his story. Instead, it became the beginning of his legend. This was just one of countless untold stories from the Second World War. Subscribe to World War II Frontlines as we continue to bring these forgotten chapters of history back to life.